Sure.
Sometimes it's nice to have a record.
Okay. Then I will, excuse me, announce our featured poet for today. Let me get to the bio here. So today we are welcoming Gary Grossman, and here is his bio. Gary Grossman is Professor Emeritus of Animal Ecology at the University of Georgia and an author of 150 scientific articles. Gary's poetry has been published in 38 reviews, including Verse Virtual, Sheila Nagig, McQueen's Quinterly, Salvation South, and Delta Poetry Review. He has short fiction in McQueen's and creative nonfiction in Tamarine Literary Magazine. Gary's flash fiction piece, Mindfulness, was just nominated by McQueen's Quinterly for inclusion in the Best Small Fictions of 2023 anthology. For 10 years, he wrote the Ask Dr. Trout column for American Angler. Gary's first poetry book, Lyrical Years, is available from Kelsey Press, and his second, What I Meant to Say Was, will be released by Inspired Press. His graphic novel, My Life in Fish, One Scientist's Journey, may be purchased from, we'll just put that site up.
It's on Amazon, so we could
Oh, it's
just,
on Amazon. Okay.
yeah.
And he also has a gourmet venison cookbook, A Bone to Pick, My Life in Fish, which is going to be reissued in 2024 by Inspired Press. Gary, we're so glad to have you. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Sandy, and it's always an honor to be asked to be a featured reader, and I'm always honored. So, uh, most of the poems that I'm going to read are from my new book. That biography, I must have sent it to you a couple months ago because it's a little out of date. Um, all my books are now available on Amazon, and with that, I will begin. Um, I tend not to explain my poems. I mean, I write in a format that I think is very accessible, but I'll be glad to take questions, I guess, at the end of the reading, if you have any. And at some point, I'll put my website up in the chat, and it has links to all the books. So the poems are in kind of semi-chronological order, which is, excuse me, how both of my books are organized. This first poem is called What Young is Too Young? One. And it's one of those poems where the title goes right into the into the poem. So, what young is too young to hold responsible when the brain isn't fused till 25? Sorting debris in the rearview mirror of life, I would like to apologize to Chris C., my first real girlfriend, someone who picked up hurt sparrows, patching bloody wings and tails, including me at 16. 2. Red pixie haircut, thin hips and breasts kissed with a Cherokee rose. She was a colt tossing its head in spring sunlight. But my chest had holes that could only be filled by the wet heat of new skin against my own. 3. Her parents served us espresso and anisette after our dates, and I was stunned by how a happy home was just a nod and a quiet smile, which makes my spurning of Chris even less understandable. But I was too young to know that misery is a bowl that eventually can be emptied. This next poem is entitled Grandpa's Tackle Box. The thickened air was cold as permafrost as we picked through 87 years of accumulation, sentimental trilobites wrapped in the papery shale of lived years. In a far corner, under an eave, sat a tackle box, Metallic green, mottled with rust, the colors of duckweed trapped in the corner of a pond full of brim. Opened, the layered trays creaked, joints almost as frozen as Grandpa's aged knees. The box was a small galaxy of rusted hooks, bobbers, plugs, and needle nose pliers. The tango brought back his hours of help with my middle school science project, a model cell, Golgi bodies, mitochondria, and the sticky sounding endoplasmic reticulum. An embalmed nightcrawler lays across both a red-headed bass plug and a leopard frog endowed with two trebles, somehow having escaped our old tin worm can. It crumbled at my touch. My earliest memory, us walking back from Uncle Jake's pond. I didn't even reach 4 feet, and he remarked, "The stringer's heavy. Let me carry it." We had a good day, didn't we? Most of these poems were published in reviews before ending up in my book. That was in Verse Virtual, which is a great online journal and is free. Most of you probably have published in that journal, but know about it. So the next poem is entitled Seven Sisters. For 30 seconds at 10 p.m., time held its breath. Emma, striding away in ebb tide on Clayton Street. Her auburn hair and rust-colored scarf, small waves in the October wind. And finally, she's eclipsed by the parade of college kids bar hopping. It's Thursday night after all, their pockets graced by fake IDs and credit cards billed to mom. No prof is foolish enough to teach on Fridays, when all those quotes about the love that burns brightest, hottest, scorches, sears float by. Lyrics from a mental karaoke machine. And today, being just short of my 38th birthday, I stepped out of the revolving 10 p.m. sky full of twinkling coeds and ran my fingers over the two burn scars on my left bicep, wondering why I couldn't keep that flame burning, wondering how my heart had twisted into the Pleiades, those seven-star sisters that can't be viewed directly, always hovering on the periphery, just out of focus, never crisp, never clear, never to be held. And this actually is a California poem. I know several of you are listening in from California. I lived in California for 17 years before moving to Georgia in 1981, so to take a job at the university. This is entitled Black-Shouldered Kites. And for you non-ornithologists, a kite is a type of carnivorous bird, a raptor, and they have a wonderful habit of hovering. So the species in California is, not surprisingly, the black-shouldered kite. Like satisfaction unfurling on an August day, I watched two kites hover over a just harvested cornfield, marking stray hoppers and voles, while late morning thermals massage away the haze, and driving north on I-5, glance east and west to see both Sierra foothills and coastal range, gilded in late summer grass with a scatter of gray-green live oaks. The Sacramento Valley remembering nothing so much as a giant taco, cilantro strewn randomly on the edges of these tortilla mountains. The kites, now just flapping wings suspended in midair, reflected in my left side mirror, shrinking until they're just periods typed on a page of sky. And my brow furrows as I wonder whether all my deeds and intentions dispersed into the universe have shifted this disheartened planet even a millimeter back towards its proper orbit. This poem is entitled, I'm not even sure how to pronounce this. I think it's Lauds, Lauds, and it's taken from the hours of prayer that both monks and nuns have in a monastery or a nunnery. They pray 6 times within a 24-hour period. So 5:15 a.m. My bladder whispers to the bathroom, but it's September dark, sun lazier and more languid each new morning. My wife, asleep on her left side, shifts and rocks once, as if the mattress had only absorbed part of her dream. The room is warm, though the skin on her upper thighs is cool, as I lift my arm off her sleeping stomach. Our local alarm clock, a young male barred owl, calls from the backlot hickory to "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you?" Then a final "Who cooks for y'all?" Mating season summertime, yet his year-round calls echo unanswered. A small red glass vase with the last sprig of night-blooming jasmine sits on my dresser. And after one more exhale, I reckon I'm done with sleep. In open paperback, face down on her white mid-century style nightstand, tells me she was up for at least an hour. Sleeplessness, bane of boomers. The new percale top sheet crinkles as I roll out of bed on my right side, then cover her with Grandma's summer quilt. The old mattress retains my body's impression for a few seconds and hopefully fools her that I'm still there. She rocks once, slightly, then settles. This was a poem that I wrote and was published again in Verse Virtual in March. And the only reason, March of last year, the only reason I say that is I was thinking about Barbies before the movie came out. So this is called Make the Barbies Talk, Daddy. 1. Our kids don't sleep, so we stumble through the days. A bedroom brood chamber, queen, us, single, 5-year-old, and crib, baby. While clean laundry in the blue lattice basket shouts, "Fold me," as it squats in an unclogged square meter of bedroom. But there's no room for a body to sort clean boxers. So I wear nylon gym shorts washed daily in our soaped porcelain white sink. 2. We climb the hours until bedtime, our PhDs granting knowledge and fretful thoughts as we navigate the minefield of our home. Eyeless toes step lightly over homeless pacifiers and Legos strewn across red oak floors, like a modern version of Van Gogh's Sunflowers. Some breaths are half taken as we shrug, and another furrow joins the quartet at lips' corner. 3. I am an only child raised by a single mom, now a father. Young girls and rhinestones a mystery, though my wife, youngest of 6, navigates this sea of girlness like a homing salmon zigzagging through 21st century seas. Masters of classroom, our tools, logic and analysis, mostly fail with these girls. Some dilemmas ethical. Should we or shouldn't we buy the requested Barbies? Excuse me. Scientist Barbie makes the cut, as do Latinx engineer and African American physician Barbie. Mom said, "A boy, no dolls." 4. Nightmares run through our beds again, and I'm empty as the valves of a shucked oyster. But it's time to animate the Barbies, and I'm clueless and dead tired. Moving to Rachel's room, my back against her bed, we sit on the blue-gray braided rug, a Barbie in each hand, and she says in a slightly irritated bird voice, "Make the Barbies talk, Daddy, make them talk." So I'm pushing through my weariness, plumbing the depths of creativity, and I morph Barbie 1 into a surgeon performing an appendectomy, while Barbie 2 quickly earns a PhD in astrophysics and begins lecturing on black holes. I amuse Rachel for 5 minutes and 42 seconds. Then she says, "That was okay, but now let's change their outfits." This is a poem called Color Fields. The color field painters, Rothko, Still, and Newman, birthed abstract shapes, squares, fat lines, splotches like dripped candle wax, colors that contrast and complement. Creative lust is satisfied by many forms of caress. I paint with words, hoping to inform that crimson is a slash of blood, but scarlet says, "Please smile." Today, my mood falls between Viridian and Azure, learning that physics has now established that light and emotions are one and the same. My brain furrows and a query lingers. Is love a particle or a wave, or in some essential way only complete as both? This is another kind of arty poem. This is called Pentimento. Like oxygen bound by the heme running under our dermis, like maple sap flowing under bark, or peony petals curled within the bud, the world is both seen and unseen. Dissatisfied, the artist paints over an image. Years later, this pre-thought rises through the upper layers, visible first as a shadow or tracing, becoming a leafy tree or stubborn child. It is a pentimento, the unseen rising to the scene. 50 years ago tomorrow, we dug into the pine-scented turf of the Los Angeles National Forest, burying Mom's ashes, her wish for an unmarked grave. I hated her then, but gave my word. Grandma said, "This will kill me," but lived another decade. Today, as I gaze at the thick chestnut hair, blue topaz eyes, and unattached earlobes of my two grown daughters, Pentimentos all, then I voice a silent prayer. Let my failings never rise through their forms of brilliant paint. And this poem is entitled The Emotions of Trees. I spent mostly my academic appointment was research, but I always did a little bit of teaching. And for the last 10 years of my career, I taught a class in natural history of Georgia, which was a super fun class to teach and was a science class that met general education requirements for non-science majors. So I like to jokingly call it ecology for art majors. The emotions of trees. Who knew trees communicate? That Douglas firs soothe white alder, and fallen tulip poplars nourish young birch seedlings at their breasts. Nurse logs, their name. Both incense cedar and madrone have confided that all trees admire, even envy, coastal and interior redwoods, but avoid that needy millennia-old bristlecone pine who thinks every minute is a new day. Once, while hiking in Oglethorpe County, two water oaks asked me to join their healing circle for a distant cousin, a black tupelo with terminal heart rot. So strange. A minion for trees is only 3. Over time, I've watched our local black walnut shake with laughter as English ivy first tiptoed over its roots, only to tremble anxiously 2 years later as the vine started to choke its crown, thieving sap and light. And the selfishness of mistletoe leaves me speechless. Trees demand so much intimacy, branches straining outwards, secrets shedding from every leaf. Many times I hike back to the car, little more than a half-filled husk. This is a long prose poem. It's entitled Paying Attention on the Baldwin Grade. And as you might guess from the title, there is a grade coming down out of the Southern Appalachians in Baldwin, Georgia. So the highway, actually Highway 441. I know there are some folks here from Knoxville, and that highway takes us right to Knoxville. So paying attention on the Baldwin grade. Passing the big Ingalls Market, I speed through the last intersection in Baldwin, Georgia, and crest the ridge, holding up the south end of town. Actually, I'm going to stop because this poem has the F-bomb in it more than once. So if that offends someone, I won't say it, but I guess raise your hand or is it okay? Can I use the
I think you're good.
F-bomb?
I think you're fine.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to start again. Passing the Big Ingalls Market, I speed through the last intersection in Baldwin, Georgia, and crest the ridge holding up the south end of town, only to find the undulating Piedmont hills laid out before me. Visibility at least 27 miles, odd for July with its shower curtain humidity, even though white and red oaks do their best sets of push-ups, provisioning oxygen, while loblolly and shortleaf pines compass with chasers of pinene, the real deal, not that fake Christmas tree hanging from your rearview mirror. And I'm gobsmacked by the immensity and continuity of this robust green landscape. Distant from the ocean, yet looking like nothing so much as a horizon-long set of large rollers from a mid-Atlantic storm. So many waves of yellow-green, green-green, and blue-green, colors ebbing and flooding with the breeze. Like some window shade that you pull down but keeps rolling itself up. And I should excuse me. And I should really pull over and suck it all in like a long toke on a joint. Let this immensity fill my lungs and seep into iron red arterial blood for a lap or two around my body. But this is where the 8 mile stretch of 45 ends, and we're back up to 65 within 2/3 the length of a local high school football field. My wife and daughters are accustomed to my speeding. Not too fast, mind you, just the 6 or 7 miles per hour of lagniappe the troopers give you. And Georgia 441 takes speed so well, as long as you slow up on the unbanked S's just north of Homer, where you have to drop to 60 if there's traffic. But when no one's on your right, you can slalom across the lanes, drifting like Mario Andretti at the Grand Prix of Monaco, windows down and chestnut hair flapping, and that dendroid diorama of big mid-oceanic waves stays with me all the way to Athens, as I inhale the citrus flavor of new sourwood flowers and drop down to 62 at the Clark County speed limit sign while my neurons write this second, this minute, this hour in every grinning cell. And actually, I forgot I substituted that poem for the one with the F-bomb just before this reading. And that was in Salvation South, which is a magazine that's only a couple years old. It's published by Chuck Reese, who was the former founder and editor of the Bitter Southerner. And I bring that up because they're now publishing a poem, at least one poem a week. So it's a place a lot of poets wouldn't know about, but it's a great place because you get great exposure. This poem is entitled Great Blue Heron. Our rental cottage bears scars from Hurricane Alex. 5 years passed when Horsepen Creek rose over both dock and back porch, entering the house without key or payment. But karma-wise, the Atlantic was just collecting its due tithe. No matter, our vacation home place for decades. First we were two, then three, and finally four. It is early August. In 2 weeks, we return to the lecture room, but now it's 6:45 a.m., and I'm drinking my second cup of Sumatran Mandiling, having walked over to the Fifth Street beach to watch the sun summit the Atlantic horizon. And yes, the rays do run across the sky, just like the phaser bursts from the Enterprise. But now, on the back deck of the house, I'm watching our local GBH stock killifish and fiddler crabs at ebb tide. Even in my seventh decade, I am not a patient man, and I wish I could slow or halt myself just for 10 minutes. Like this bird from a Ming Dynasty scroll painting by Shen Zhu, amongst flowing silk robes, contemplation of the wind or lack of wind, and suddenly the bird takes a tremendous shit, all white uric acid and crab parts, and I remember that we are all one. This poem, it's another California poem entitled California Bay Laurel. Smell evokes the strongest memories, bypassing thymus, racing right to the olfactory bulb, like some nutso driver in Stop and Go, passing everyone on the road's shoulder. Today I am in the fog of coastal redwoods, 2,500 miles away from Georgia's August depression. Heat and humidity so bad you can see fungi grow, sometimes even on yourself. So yesterday, the Tuesday after the funeral of my wife's oldest sister, we're hiking in the redwoods, and I'm suddenly triggered by a branch laced with emerald knife blade leaves. And instead of the Russian River Valley, I'm 15, standing on Pacific Coast Highway 1 at Cayucos, thumb out, having just picked a few bay laurel leaves to place under my backpack strap. Leaves pushing out the scent of good health, pungent, peppery, part thyme, part oregano, somehow slowing my heart rate, deepening inhalations and exhalations, injecting a fog of calm so intense, I've forgotten the thrown objects and occasional blows of my bipolar mother, and the oozing wound just to the left of my heart, sliced by a dad's perpetual absence. Ghosts resurrecting phoenix-like 50 years later as I pick leaves from another bay laurel, when my cell rings and I hear the voice of my older daughter, the veterinarian. How are we doing time-wise? Do I have time for a couple more or?
How about one more?
Okay. All right. Well, I'll end on a fun note. Uh, this is entitled Lessons from the Zen Poet. Having written for years, I finally visited the Zen poet and asked about his work. He said, "Nothing new. Been working on the same poem for a decade. Almost have the wording right." 5 years later, I returned and he replied, "Wording finally right. Working now on line structure." 5 years later, I returned to find him rearranging stanzas and whispering, "Not yet." An additional 5 years yielded, "Punctuation still isn't quite right." And I exclaimed, "But sensei, no one will know your work, your perfect poem." He replied, "It doesn't matter." Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you so much for being here. Really enjoyed those poems. If you want to put I know you said Amazon. Do you want to put some links up on the chat or?
Sure. Let me,
Right.
oh, Just give me a second here and I will put links to everything in the chat.
Right.
I don't know if pictures will come up or not. Let's see. Apparently not. So that is my graphic memoir.
Okay.
And then this is my first poetry book.
Great. Yeah. If you'll be doing that, then we'll go ahead and start the open mic
Sure.
right up there, and then people can
I, I will just show you a couple pages from my graphic memoir because it's really kind of a fun book. So
oh, okay, yeah. Very nice.
sure. So read away.